My fiancée insisted on taking over my daughter's bedroom for her own use. I firmly stood my ground and refused to compromise my child's sense of stability and security, fully aware that doing so might jeopardize my relationship, but unwilling to let my daughter feel displaced in her own home. I'm a 47-year-old man, and my 15-year-old daughter, Stacy, enjoys one of the 2 bedrooms in my home that features an attached private bathroom. It's quite a spacious room with a lovely bay window, truly a nice spot. Recently, I became engaged to my girlfriend, Alice, who is 33, after we've been together for 3 years. Her landlord recently increased her rent, so we're making arrangements for her and her children to move in with me. She has 2 daughters, 13 and 10, and 2 sons, 11 and 9. Plus, we're expecting our daughter in about 5 months. I made it absolutely clear to Stacy, as a prerequisite for her full support of Alice moving in, that she would retain her current room and be able to install a complete lock on her door. For what it's worth, my 24-year-old son also gave his blessing for his old room to be used, though that point is less relevant now as he lives with his own girlfriend. Stacy plans to attend school locally, and I've assured her, unequivocally, that she's welcome to live here for the rest of my life, and after that, she will inherit the house. I acquired this home with her mother, and a significant portion of its value was paid off with her mother's life insurance 10 years ago, so it feels just. Stacy says she's perfectly fine as long as she keeps her room, her bathroom, and has the ability to lock her door. She has a toaster oven and a mini fridge in there, so I'd say she's quite settled. Stacy is currently utilizing another room as a studio for her art projects, including video creation and voiceovers. So, even her main, larger room will become a bit more confined, and she will definitely need the additional space she possesses. A bedroom will be designated for Alice's girls, which will be Stacy's former project room, and Alice's boys will move into my son's old room. I'm also planning to create a finished nursery in the basement for our new daughter. Alice, however, believes this arrangement is unfair. She feels it was wrong for me to make these decisions without her involvement. She also thinks her 2 daughters should occupy Stacy's room, and that Stacy should then move into the smaller room they would have gotten. As it stands, her 2 daughters already share a room smaller than the one they are about to move into, so it's an upgrade for them regardless. Alice thinks it's not right for Stacy to have a bathroom entirely to herself, and that there won't be enough bathrooms for everyone else. She also disapproves of Stacy's ability to lock everyone out. There were other minor details she didn't approve of that I had already agreed to with Stacy, such as Stacy being compensated for any babysitting, or the fact that my older car, which was her mom's, will be hers when she gets her driver's license. We will have our own bathroom in the master bedroom. The house also contains 3 additional bathrooms, one on each floor, one near where the girls' room will be, one not far from where the boys' room will be, and one that will essentially be directly next to the new finished basement room. I informed Alice that my agreement with Stacy is non-negotiable and set in stone, and it is quite literally a condition of her even moving in. Alice is bothered that Stacy and I both have spaces entirely dedicated to ourselves. I have my office, which I require because I work from home and have other projects, and there aren't many other areas to put people. I told her she can largely do what she wishes in the living room, but that's the reality of the situation, and there's pretty much nothing to be done about it. A larger house is not an option unless Alice is going to start earning significantly more money and purchase her own bigger house. This is already a fairly large house, and housing is expensive. I explained to her that she's already receiving a benefit by my only expecting her to contribute 15% or 20% to household bills. If we were doing it proportionally, it would be more like 25% to 30%. We maintain separate finances and have agreed to a prenuptial arrangement. Alice just seems upset that I won't change the setup, even though there's no realistic way to change it, and she's accused me of treating Stacy like a spoiled little princess and letting her be the queen of the house. Frankly, my daughter comes first. She's lived here all her life, and I already know it's going to be a significant adjustment having all these other kids move in. As much as I love Alice, and as much as I want our relationship to succeed, if it's a matter of choosing between the 2 of them, then my relationship with Alice is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I've told her that if she comes into this with wicked stepmother vibes, that will mark the end of things. She believes I am being unreasonable. Update 1. First, to address a few questions that seemed to be frequently appearing before I lost the capacity to read every single reply, although I am still attempting to. My 24-year-old son is my child from a previous relationship before I met and married my late wife. He has his own provisions in my will, but he is quite aware that the house goes to his sister. My own sister is designated to become the guardian of my daughter should anything happen to me. I love my sister as dearly as I love anyone, and she and her niece have a loving relationship and get along wonderfully. I trust her completely should, God forbid, anything occur. Yes, the basement is an unusual place for a nursery, but I was simply trying to find suitable spaces for everyone. The move was supposed to happen within a month, and Alice's older children needed rooms immediately. Meanwhile, the baby isn't due for about 5 months, so she could occupy the room that isn't yet complete. I honestly thought we could keep a crib in our room for a bit, and after that, it's not a major issue for a child to have her room in a finished basement. Also, honestly, I didn't want to relocate my office. It's been in its current spot forever, and I preferred not to move it. I can admit that we've had the initial framework for a finished basement for a long time, but there was never a compelling reason to accelerate its completion. It was a substantial change to go from having more room than we needed with just Stacy and me echoing around the house to suddenly scrambling for space and finding it insufficient. It was the clear spot where an additional bedroom could be placed, but not a spot where a bedroom currently existed. Alice and I had discussed marriage and children more or less in abstract terms on many occasions, and we both wanted to get married at some point if things continued to progress positively, and I wanted to have more children, although this pregnancy was quite unexpected. It was Alice's pregnancy, combined with the rent increase at her place, that expedited the timeline of events. For what it's worth, the rent hike is legitimate. I've seen the paperwork, and I literally have no reason to suspect the baby is not mine. But yes, the sole reason for our recent engagement is Alice's pregnancy. The only reason Alice and her children would be moving in with me so abruptly is because she was likely going to need to relocate, and I obviously wanted to be responsible. 4. Be near and raise my forthcoming daughter. To me, it made sense for my daughter to live with me. I never wanted to be an absentee or part-time parent, or to lack time or shared space with my child. The circumstances all made sense, at least until now. I was definitely cautious about Alice and paying closer attention to her, especially after the many comments I read. I came to Reddit to get a reality check on whether or not I was being unfair about my conditions with Stacy, not to try to actually make any major life or relationship changes, but I didn't want to ignore warning signs either. It was Friday, and Stacy texted me asking for her allowance. I was with Alice at the time, and I went ahead and let the subject arise. I give Stacy $100 a week. Alice considers this to be crazy and excessive. She thinks it's inappropriate and has brought it up as an example of how she believes I'm raising Stacy like a spoiled princess. She said as much again when I told her I was sending Stacy her allowance, but this time Alice also asked if her children would receive the same allowance after we get married. I told her that someday our new daughter would probably receive an allowance, just like Stacy does, but that there was absolutely no way I had any plans of disbursing an extra $400 a week for her other children. Alice became upset. She claimed that Stacy wastes my money on shoes and makeup. She had previously criticized Stacy for wearing fancy sneakers, high heels, and makeup, and she stated that I was showing favoritism and that this constitutes a form of abuse. She complained about me allowing Stacy to purchase items with my credit card and store my credit card on her phone when I don't even permit Alice to do that. She said that whatever money was designated for the children should be divided evenly amongst them. When I shrugged and told her that was not going to happen and that I wasn't going to reduce Stacy's allowance, she snapped at me and said that a man living alone with his daughter and doting on her like I do is creepy and incestuous, and she added, "You've just replaced your dead wife with your daughter, and you need to stop." That was it. Certainly, I had overlooked many warning signs until then, but that statement was the breaking point. She began attempting to explain how it's unhealthy for me to be so close with Stacy and how she didn't want her children to be neglected and how she wanted to be treated as an equal if we were getting married. But I interrupted her and told her that I don't think we should be getting married. I told her that I no longer want her moving in and that we were going to need to figure something else out. To be perfectly honest, my sister, my brother, and some of my friends had expressed some of the same reservations about Alice that I've read, although they were generally much more gentle about it. I was in love with her. In fact, I am still in love with her, and I wasn't seeing things clearly. I told her that I would always and definitely ensure that our child had a roof over her head, but that she was going to have to make arrangements for herself and her children on her own. Obviously, we had a huge argument. She screamed at me, called me a heartless bastard, blamed Stacy for attempting to sabotage our relationship, and guilt-tripped me about her cost of living and how I'm in an empty house all by myself. She also guilt-tripped me about the baby's future, and I genuinely do feel bad and worry about that. She eventually broke down crying and told me to leave. In the past 10 years, this was the first serious relationship I've had with a woman. I love her, and this hurts. It hurts a great deal. I told Stacy that she didn't have to bother moving her belongings out of the other room, that Alice wasn't coming, and we embraced. She asked if this was her fault, and I told her no. I told her I honestly feel like marrying Alice would have been a mistake, even if the two of them could have been best friends. I always wanted to have a few more children, and I've missed having a wife, but things don't always happen the way we want them to. So I'm pretty sure my relationship with Alice is effectively over, even if we're going to be raising a child together. For the foreseeable future, my new daughter can have my son's old room whenever we work out whatever custody agreement we end up establishing. I'm not sorry to be having another child, even if I truly wish the circumstances could be better. The red flags were always there. I suppose it's better that I notice them now instead of even later. Now, onto the second story. I discovered my in-laws using their MLM patch on my sick daughter, and now they are prohibited from seeing her, causing significant family drama. My wife and I, both 24, welcomed our daughter in July. She is the most wonderful thing to ever happen to us, and we couldn't be more thrilled to have our little bundle of joy. She recently fell ill while staying with her grandparents, my in-laws, during a work trip my wife and I took. For context, my in-laws are deeply involved in LifeWave X39. It's a patch that supposedly helps regrow stem cells by reflecting light rays back into your body, enabling your body to produce more stem cells to combat diseases and sickness. In my opinion, it sounds like snake oil, and my wife agrees, calling it a pyramid scheme. The only way to obtain these patches is by spending well over $1,000, and then you are tasked with selling the patches yourself. It's essentially a multi-level marketing product where the more patches you sell, the more money you earn, aligning perfectly with my wife's comparison to a pyramid scheme, but MLMs are somehow legal. I've attempted to research X39, and the only comments I've seen praising the product are from brand new accounts never used before or after, or their entire profile is dedicated to promoting LifeWave X39. In my own research, they appear to be nothing more than overpriced stickers. They contain no medication, no special UV rays, or anything of that sort. They are literally just an overpriced sticker with an air bubble. However, my wife and I have made it very clear that we wanted no part in X39, nor did we want our daughter to have it. Even if it's fake, we wanted no involvement, and on the slim chance it did something, I certainly didn't want our daughter to be used as their lab rat or guinea pig. Before we left our daughter with my in-laws, we provided them with some infant medication just in case she got sick. You can never be too safe, you know. Well, we returned home from the work trip early because our daughter wasn't getting any better, so we picked her up and went home. We were going to give her a bath, and in the process of taking her jacket off, we discovered an X39 patch on her arm. Upon finding it, we immediately called her parents and demanded to know why she had a patch on her. Her parents tried claiming that it's safe for babies, and that they even ordered the ones for ages 7 and younger, and that it's practically medication, their words, which still didn't answer our question. So my wife checked the go bag, and the Motrin we gave them, while used, was not used very much at all. Her parents tried claiming that someone else in their group, or whatever it is, gave it to their son, and he recovered in a week. The point is, we didn't buy it, nor did we care. We had made it abundantly clear that we wanted nothing to do with X39, and we didn't want our daughter to be involved. They failed to listen. My wife was on the phone with them for over an hour, and while I don't know the exact duration, I know it at least concluded with her screaming, "You're never going to see my daughter again, and if you attempt to come to my house, we will call the police," before hanging up. That was 3 days ago now, and we've had several missed calls from family members, her parents, her siblings, and even family friends, all saying that we overreacted and they were just trying to help. Perhaps we overreacted, but we wanted nothing to do with that, and despite making it clear, they went against our wishes and did it anyway. And instead of giving my daughter actual medication, they tried to give her some placebo patch. Her parents tried claiming that we're preventing them from seeing their only grandchild over something so minor, but we didn't want to hear it. Update 1. There has been some progress on that front, and while I'm confident things will likely conclude here, I wanted to provide a quick update for those who might have been curious. I'm writing this from the restroom at work, so please excuse any rushed quality. After my wife essentially severed ties with them, and we all received countless phone calls and text messages from family and friends, things became quieter for about a week or two. We started having my sister watch our daughter instead when we had to work. We haven't had another out-of-town trip since the initial post. However, throughout those couple of weeks, we never really heard anything beyond a couple of supposed complaining posts on Facebook, but I can't seem to locate those posts. We thought things would probably, hopefully, end there, but boy, were we mistaken. This is quite a leap from the last post. My wife and I were visited by CPS about 2 weeks ago, after they received concerning calls about alleged child abuse and negligence within our household. Of course, nothing of the sort occurred, and the caseworker was very quick to see that. We asked who reported us, and while she couldn't disclose it, we suspected it was from her parents. We were completely helpful and cooperative with the caseworker. And after she left that night, my wife called her mom and asked if she was the one who called CPS. Surprisingly, her mother took full accountability, but, not so surprisingly, tried to frame it in her favor, claiming she did it for our own good because our daughter was sick and wasn't improving when she was there. So clearly, we were doing something terrible as parents. Kids get sick, it happens. But they are also extreme anti-vaxxers, not just for COVID, but for everything. Even something as trivial as the flu shot. Yet they are willing to spend thousands of dollars for some supposed stem cell regeneration sticker. The hypocrisy and irony in that are unparalleled. My wife didn't really know how to react to that, so she basically told her mom to go to hell and that she wanted nothing to do with her again. I know I saw a few comments on the last post suggesting perhaps we shouldn't have cut them out entirely. But now I'm starting to question why we didn't cut them out years ago, before our daughter was even a thought in our heads. About a week after the first audit, my mother-in-law showed up at our house on my day off while my wife was at work and essentially demanded to see our daughter, forcing her way into our home by pushing past my arm when I told her to get out of my house. She had no business marching in here like that. She essentially told me that I'm unfit to be a parent because I'm depriving my daughter of help she desperately needed because she's clearly a very sick child. My daughter is perfectly healthy right now. In fact, she has no runny nose and no high temperature, nothing. I told my mother-in-law straight up that she was absolutely insane. I unleashed on her about how she lied to us, went against our wishes, had the audacity to call and lie to CPS, and then showed up at our house unannounced and invited herself inside, as well as everything about her X39 LifeWave involvement. We argued there for a while before I finally became so fed up that I told her to leave my house before I called the police. She stormed out of the house and, in typical Karen fashion, said, "This isn't over," before slamming my door. I immediately called my wife, who was, of course, enraged. The following morning, we filed a restraining order at the courthouse against her mom and dad because they are clearly not in their right mind. The caseworker had to audit us a few more times as per their guidelines over the past 2 weeks, and yesterday was her last day where she informed us that we're doing well and she's sorry for the trouble they caused. We kept her updated on the LifeWave situation, the unannounced visits, and the restraining order, and she couldn't really take a side. She seemed apologetic, but my wife and I are quite furious. We started looking at houses in another state to get as far away from her in-laws as possible. Our company has offices there, so it's entirely possible we could just be transferred. So we're crossing our fingers that all goes well and the restraining order is filed soon enough. Update 2. Things aren't going to be as dramatic in this post as the last two, but some new developments have occurred, so I'll just jump right in. After my in-laws called CPS on us for no discernible reason other than we forbade them from seeing our daughter, things mostly quieted down. Some of you suggested that we should do more than just obtain a restraining order, so we purchased some security cameras and had them installed all around our property. Our neighbors, who are quite good friends of ours, were largely kept in the loop. Anytime we had to go somewhere, not only did we have video cameras recording every instance someone entered our driveway, displayed directly on our phones, but our neighbors also kept us updated. My mother-in-law stopped coming around for the first few months after she called CPS on us. However, just last month, as we were preparing to move, my in-laws somehow learned we planned on relocating states and attempted to block our driveway, while her dad tried blocking the front door. I'm not sure what their plan was there, because we have a back door and an extra side door leading from the kitchen, but I digress. Her mom blocked the driveway, preventing our U-Haul and car from leaving the property, and wouldn't budge even after we told them we would call the police. They informed us they would move if we told them where we were relocating, but my wife told them that wasn't happening and that they had 10 minutes to leave or we would be calling the police. My neighbor came over during the commotion, but my in-laws still wouldn't budge. My daughter was crying during all of this as my wife was trying to comfort her, while my neighbor and I attempted to remove my father-in-law from the doorway, but he wouldn't move. Eventually, my wife called the police, and I'm guessing another neighbor called them as well, because they responded within mere minutes. My in-laws kept screaming that we were taking their rightful grandchild away and that we would all be damned to burn in hell for this. But honestly, that just made me laugh. The police repeatedly asked them to leave, but they wouldn't. Eventually, they were arrested for refusing to leave, and the police were kind enough to call a tow truck for us to be able to back out of the driveway. Lo and behold, as the police were handcuffing my in-laws, they both had on those X39 patches, and even the police questioned them about it. But whatever, what's done is done. We were finally able to leave and move on to new adventures. We've been settled in at our new house for the better part of over a month now, and we're enjoying it greatly. No word from her in-laws, and they have no idea where we are. We have them blocked, but will eventually receive messages from unknown numbers or Facebook accounts asking where we moved, but there's no way they are foolish enough to believe we will actually tell them.